This is the Adidas Next Level Futurenatural sneaker, and I think it just changed the game for laceless sneakers. Let me explain. Hey, what is up? Zach here, and I am super pumped for this review because Adidas has really been coming at us with new tech in the laceless shoe category. Now, this is their third in a really recent succession of laceless sneakers, going all the way back to the Stycon BOA, the Next Level 2020, and now the Next Level Futurenatural. Now, with each successive iteration of these laceless sneakers, they have really been trying to experiment with new technology to get these laceless designs as stable and as confident to the player as a more traditional lace design shoe. But there are a lot of hurdles with a laceless design shoe. Number one, stability. Number two, comfort. And in Adidas's case, number three, it's weight. So let's see what the Futurenatural has to offer and if they have started to really figure out these kind of pinch points in the shoe. Let's get started. Now, typically in my reviews and teardowns, I save the teardown for the actual midsole. However, with a laceless shoe, one of the most important parts is the uppers, so I just tore them down right away. Now, one thing different on the Futurenaturals versus something like the Stycons or earlier iteration is this is just a more two-layer design, whereas the Stycons is a more three-layer design. Now, with this one, you only have one ankle strap, but the most inner layer is a really thick padding. So this thing is going to suck down on your foot a little bit harder because the padding is a little thicker. The other thing you'll notice is these pods that go around your Achilles tendon. Now, what's interesting about these little pods, number one, they really do hold your rear foot in a lot better than the Stycon and the older Next Levels, but they're also the same design that we use in compression sleeves when we're trying to rehab Achilles tendons. So they're using some of the same tech from rehab and physical therapy in their shoes, which I really like, because if that technology is good enough to rehab a tendon, it's good enough to keep it in place. And just behind these memory foam pods is a double layer heel counter. Now, on the inside layer, it's that backer board heel counter, which is pretty stiff, but also on the outside, you have a plastic wraparound, which keeps it even more secure. Now, on a laceless shoe, you really want a stiff heel counter so that your heel doesn't start toggling around and put more tension here on the elastic parts. You want your heel stable because that's the part that's gonna start twisting back and forth. So I really like what Adidas did here. It's using what they can in terms of just raw, simple biomechanics to keep the foot stable without having to add more bells and whistles like in the old Stycons. And I did notice with the Next Levels, I had so much less movement in the rear foot than I did in past laceless shoes. Now, the one thing also I did notice is they took a little bit more time to break in around the ankle collar. Even when wearing two pairs of high crew socks, I still did have a little bit of irritation for about 1.5 to 2 hours. However, once I got past that point, these memory foam pods started to feel really good, almost like a massage around my Achilles tendon, which is exactly what you want it to feel like. And I think that's why I like the fit of the Futurenatural so much more than I like the original Stycons and even previous versions of this shoe. It's because it locks your heel in so well that it doesn't need to strangle your mid and forefoot with elastic bands. It's just keeping you settled in the shoe, just using your basic human anatomy instead of trying to add more elastic. And speaking of using the player's own anatomy, if you just look at the last of the Futurenaturals, it's not a really wide last like some of the other shoes in the laceless category we've seen, like the Stycons, which are basically just one big oval. This has a pretty narrow midfoot, but it has outcroppings for your 5th metatarsal and 1st metatarsal. So it's allowing you a lot more movement in the front part of the shoe while keeping the other part of the shoe pretty snug. So once again, it's a little more of an anatomic design to the shoe, which allows you to have, number one, more stability, number two, much more comfort, because it's accommodating pretty much all the little lumps and bumps you could have in there while still keeping it rock solid around where it needs to be. But the thing that got me most pumped as a foot doctor and as a wannabe athlete is this hybrid drop-in midsole. Now, it is a drop-in. Now, typically I don't really love drop-in midsoles. However, this one had a really strong gluing down to the strobo board, so it really wasn't going anywhere. It was nice and secure. Number two, it's 3 layers. It's got boost foam running down the center, right where it says boost. Then it has light strike around the entire periphery. Now, it also has this flange that comes up. This is what we call a soft flange. Now, what I really like about this is in a laceless shoe, just naturally you're gonna slide a little bit because there's no laces to hold your foot center. Now, this actually stops your foot from sliding over the lateral side of the shoe, which gives you a lot more proprioception, which stops you from rolling your ankle. So just a little small innovation here, which is really low tech, gives you so much more stability. But what Adidas did to take it to another level, no pun intended, was to put a polypropylene shank on the bottom of this that spans the entire arch in the shape of an over-the-counter orthotic. Now this is just as strong as any over-the-counter orthotic you can buy out there, including my favorite Power Step and Superfeet. So when you go into the next level Futurenatural, not only are you getting a huge stack of foam underneath your foot, but you're also getting the strength of an orthotic, so you don't have to put one in. They've already put one in for you. And with that double density of foam plus rigid shank underneath, this shoe is a beast at storing potential energy and then rapidly releasing it as kinetic energy, getting 30.5 centimeters of serve jump height, which is really on the higher end of a shoe this bulky. Now the outsole tread is where Adidas is kind of following the trend instead of creating it. It has more of that suction cup pattern you see on some of the Nike outsoles. Now on a more organic surface like hardwood, this is going to suction cup down really well because of these vacuoles in here. Now on an outdoor court, these are also going to suction cup down really well, except when you start to get to the more slicker surfaces. So the more sand or the more grit in a court surface, the more these are going to want to suction cup down because it's going to interact with those little granules. However, on a really slick surface, you might find yourself sliding a little bit. Now, if you're going to want to play tennis or pickleball on these shoes, that can actually be an advantage because these slide really well on a hard court. So it just kind of depends on what kind of player you are if you're going to like or dislike the outsole tread on these. And on the outsole durability test, the Dremel 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper, only about 1.5 millimeters of damage, which is tremendous for a basketball sneaker and just about middle of the road for an outdoor court sneaker, tennis, or pickleball sneaker. So these are going to give you a lot more durability than a traditional hoop sneaker on an outdoor surface. And even if you just want to use these for tennis or pickleball, these are going to give you just as much durability as any medium compound rubber. I think the most surprising thing about the Futurenaturals is their fit. They really do fit medium, narrow, and wide width players really well. Number one, because of the outcroppings in the forefoot, wider width feet, even wider widths way into the forefoot, really can fit into these shoes pretty well with minimal break-in. Number two, narrow and medium feet, because of how the shoe locks your heel in and how this shoe vacuum seals you down with that thicker padding on the second layer, these shoes really do suck in those medium and narrow width feet as well. But like I alluded to before, I think the one thing that's going to preclude some people from using these is their weight. These are 20.88 ounces for a size 11.5 shoe, whereas the Stycons, the previous version of their laceless shoe, 17.88. Now I think if you're a bigger player, over 6 foot, over 200 pounds, pretty strong legs, these actually might balance you out a little bit more, give you a little bit more balance underfoot, especially for basketball or pickleball with those really short, small steps you have to take, kind of getting yourself into position. But despite its weight, I still came in at 14.80 seconds on the suicide test, which is not a terrible time, especially given how heavy the shoe is and the fact that it has no laces holding me down. So if you are a skinnier player, shorter side, or you just don't really rely on your leg strength, these might be a little bit too much for you. However, if you are a bulkier player, bigger player, and you want something a little more balanced, kind of keep you centered to the ground, these actually are going to be a little bit of an asset to you. But I think if I had to describe the next level Futurenaturals in one word, it would be close. They are so close to being ready for prime time. The only thing that's setting them back is the weight. Unless you are a much bigger player with stronger legs that really wants a lot of that weight down south, then these shoes are going to start getting really heavy on you. If they can just find a way to get a little bit of that weight off this shoe, not even all of it. I mean, I'm fine with it being a heavier shoe, but 20.88 ounces for an 11.5 shoe is really heavy for most people. So I really think if Adidas wants to get this shoe into the mainstream of seeing a lot of professional basketball players use it, and in the case of the Stycon, a lot of professional tennis players using it, they've got to get the weight down. They've got the technology to keep you stable now. They just got to get the technology to keep you light on your feet. But of course, I want to know down below, are you ready to start competing in laceless sneakers? Are you ready to start going full go in laceless sneakers, or are you waiting for the next iteration to see if they can perfect it more? Let me know down below. Now, if you want to see my playtest and review of the previous version of these, the Stycons, make sure you click into the playlist up above and subscribe down below. I'll see you in the next video.